Hi you guys, my name is Terra J McDaniel and I'm about to record and post up a reciting of a poem that I just written a couple of weeks ago. The title of it is Her Story and I hope you guys enjoy it. She picked up the pen and began to write. She wrote a story of a masquerade through pain, tragedy, and strife. The story of a girl's life, a girl who was abandoned when she was just 2 months old because the woman who birthed her chose being promiscuous, intoxicated, and high, as if it was more important of that than tending to her baby's cry. So she was taken into another's arms, but still a hole and the feeling of loneliness was left in her heart. The story of a girl who lost her grandpa and the closest thing she had as a father to death, watching as each took their last breath right before her eyes, not at the same time, but behind one another so closely, as she stood helplessly praying to God, praying and hoping that He heard her and would answer her prayers. But when each was pronounced dead, the feeling of loneliness, now accompanied by pain, grew bigger instead. The story of a girl who was bit by a snake that stole her innocence, and its venom killed whatever was left and left her with emptiness, left her with nothing but an addiction to the venom, because it was the only time she had the feeling of fullness and acceptance. So she allowed herself to be bitten by other snakes, but after each took whatever each could take, again she was left with loneliness, pain, and now anger in her heart, and a wish that at birth she had died from the start. The story of a girl who always acted fine, who wore a mask of a smile on her face, though she was crying inside and had a hole in her heart that threatened to consume her by the chaos her life had created. Wondering and questioning God's will for her creation, hiding behind her mask to hide from the world, crying out loud for help but no one ever heard, trying so hard to convince herself that she was normal and fine, even though thoughts of her putting a bullet through her head, hanging from a rope around her neck, and passed out on the floor with a bottle of meds nearby always ran through her mind. The story of a girl who had the touch of an artist. She used a razor as a brush and her wrist as the canvas, painting pictures that were simple lines, but the only way she felt like she could handle the loneliness, pain, and anger inside. Painting helped her release the chaos in a controlled way, and showed her that she could still feel, and told her that some parts of her could still heal. The story of a girl who hated to look in the mirror, because even though the mask hid her from the rest of the world, the mirror always confronted her with the truth. And the truth was, she hated herself from her actions to her looks, because she looked and acted like the woman who never raised her. Though because of genetic makeup she was stuck, and it was something no one, not even herself, could help. Her very existence was a curse, because she was marked at birth and told she'd always be just like her. The story of a girl who was raised in church, who believed in God's love but felt like it didn't apply to her, like He turned His back on her, left her here on earth, and her name He forgot. It was as if every prayer she prayed He heard not. It was as if she was unworthy for Him to even notice, and that's probably why no one else ever noticed her, and the scars from the pictures she drew, why the snakes bite and venom they acted ignorant to, why no one cared enough to see past her mask, though they probably plead they didn't think she'd be affected by the death's aftermath, and why the woman who carried her for 9 months never wanted her. Her baby girl who looked just like her, she left to just be taken care of in the hands of another. The story of a girl who grew tired of crying unshedded tears, who grew tired of holding everything she's held within for years, who grew tired of hating herself for things she couldn't control, and like at any given moment the feeling that she'd be consumed by the hole in her heart, and she was ready to be filled again. But she was tired of her addiction to the snake's venom, and tired of painting pictures using the razor as the brush and her wrist as the canvas, and she was tired of hiding behind the smile on her mask. So she took it off, and it fell to the floor with a loud crack. And everything she's held back within for years crashed into her like a gigantic wave, and washed away the feeling of loneliness, anger, and pain, and filled her heart. And she felt like God had finally acknowledged her as His child. And after years of hiding, she felt like she was finally found. The girl stopped writing and put her pen down. As I read her story, a tear fell from my eye. The story I had just written was mine.